So in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of talk about some of the different pieces that we haven't looked at thus far, and just kind of make sure you understand some of the data sources, some of the connections, and a bunch of the options that are available to you so you can have this full, really take advantage of all the fun that is Power Apps, Canvas apps. So if we go down here, what I want to look at first is we can go into data and then connections. And so here we've talked, we've already had the OneDrive and the SharePoint connection, but if we click on New Connection, I want you just to make sure you kind of take a moment to soak in the whole bunch. I was going to give you a number, but it's so big I can't even keep up anymore. The whole bunch of different data connections that are available here. There's always new ones coming in. There's always lots of fun. But so typically here, when you're trying to find a connection type, come over here and type in something like SQL, right? Hit enter to do a search. And so here you can see, well, I can use SQL data warehouses. I can use MySQL, PostgreSQL, Microsoft SQL Server. That's a lot of SQL, right? So when you're trying to kind of figure and find your way through here, you'll want to use the search functionality. But I will be honest with you, sometimes I just kind of go in here and I just kind of scroll through to see what's going on, see what new things might be in here that kind of pique my interest. And so there's a lot of this connections you expect, Office 365 stuff, some Azure stuff. But then there's also connectors in here for things like, Amazon Redshift or Salesforce or MailChimp. There's a lot of different data source connections available to you. So it's up to you to kind of think through your whole solution and figure out what other places you need to talk to. Because one of the big upsides of Power Apps is we can talk to this much grander ecosystem. And then if you don't find what you want, what you might want to do is go check out our friend Flow, which we're going to cover later on in the course. But Flow has even more connectors and types. And so Power Apps and Flow work together, and then you've got access to all Flow's connectors. So a lot of neat stuff in here. A couple of other little notes here. So you can see who the publisher of the connector is. You can see if it's in preview or not. And you'll notice a lot of these are still in preview. That's okay. I still use them all the time. They're still working out maybe some kinks or whatever, but I have not ran into any issues. I'm always happy to use one of these preview ones and dive in. Also, you'll see the premium flag. So if you've purchased one of the more advanced SKUs of Power Apps to fully unlock your solution, some of these connectors are only going to work with those premium licenses. So take a look at that as well. So that's kind of an overview of all of these. Down here, you also have the ability to do custom connectors. And so custom connectors is where you can go and create your own connector, right? Henceforth the word custom. But here, if we click on Create Custom Connector, you can see I have options for creating from blank, importing a different type of API, so connecting to web services. So I've seen customers do things like make solutions for doing address validation and connecting to their own web services they'd written, because there is going to be a wizard here that's going to walk you through where's your endpoint, what's the data look like, how's it be formatted, how are you going to push that back to Power Apps. There's a nice little interface here. So it's outside the scope of this course, but I want to make sure that you knew as you progress and you start to think about, man, I want to use Power Apps with X or Y. Even if there's not a connector, could you come in here and make your own custom connector and take advantage of web services? A lot of times the answer is yes. Next up here on the list is gateways. And so you can see that I currently don't have a gateway installed. But if you click on New Gateway, it's going to help me download this tool and get that available. And so what the gateway is we call this the on-prem data connection gateway. And so the on-prem data connection gateway is going to allow you to interact with your on-premises data from within Power Apps. So if you want to expose on-premises SharePoint, on-premises SQL Server, on-premises file shares, and make those available to Power Apps so that you can build a more comprehensive solution, that's going to work, right? It also will do things like MySQL. I just discovered that the other day. I was pretty excited. Like, cool, I can even go and get other type of data sources. The really neat thing about this gateway, though, is that you install it once, and it lights up. So it works with Power Apps. It works with Power BI. It works with Flow. It works with Azure Logic Apps. So this one instance of Data Gateway running on a machine inside your network is going to open up your internal data to all of those external cloud-hosted solutions. Also, it doesn't take a bunch of complicated stuff or a bunch of work by IT because we don't have to open any holes inbound in the firewall to access it, because what happens is the Data Gateway pulls the cloud and says, oh, what are you looking for? And then it pushes your data out to the cloud. So really great tool, especially for those of you that are still running in these hybrid scenarios where you have both on-prem data and non-on-prem data, or non-on-prem data, cloud data would be what we call that. If you have those two solutions, you can use the gateways to build a better solution. You can make them redundant. There's a whole bunch of stuff there we're not going to get into, but gateways are pretty awesome, so check those out. So the other things I want to just make sure we talk about for a second here is the fact that, Power Apps, so we're going to explore how Power Apps works with Microsoft Flow and CDS here in upcoming modules, but also keep a lookout for things like Power BI, right? So Power BI, if you haven't used it before, is this great data dashboard, BI tool that is available as part of the Office 365 suite also. And so with Power BI though, it's all about creating actionable data, right? So building these reports that someone can look at and be like, oh man, that's what I need to know. Now I need to go take an action. Those Power BI dashboards though, you can take and embed a Power Apps app in there. And then you can connect it to. So then now your actionable dashboard, you can have a Power Apps app surfaced in there the same way we surfaced inside of SharePoint. And so then they can have and take action right there from their Power BI dashboard. They don't have to switch tabs. You don't have to go to another tool. We can make an all-up experience. So now actionable data, and then there's the big action button that they want to click. We can make that and integrate those as well. So be sure to take a look at Power BI and Power Apps and how they work together to make a full fidelity actionable data solution. Also, keep in mind that we've talked about a bunch of these. I just want to point out that we can also use the connectors here to do things like send an email, interact with your Office 365 account and all that rich metadata about users and managers and all that. There are connectors and ways to get at all of that data. So that kind of gets us through all of those. Also, as you think about data sources, you might look at using something like Azure SQL as a service. That's been a popular one. Just keep in mind when you're doing Azure SQL as a service, you need to write really nice, tight queries and think through that because you pay by the data transaction unit out in Azure SQL Database as a Service. And so so Power Apps and Azure SQL, they can be very chatty, and so you can end up needing a much bigger database than you were originally imagining because it's all based on the amount of transactions you're using. Which opens up to probably my favorite data source for Power Apps, and that is going to be the Common Data Service, or CDS. And so our whole next module, we're going to dive into all the advantages, all the awesomeness that is CDS. We don't have to worry about those performance things. We don't have to worry about data structures. We don't have to worry about how any of the pieces connect together. We're just going to go in there. We're going to lay out our business data based on the businessy things we know. Let CDS do all the magic on the back end to wire up data structures and keys and normalization. I don't even know. All of those things. So pretty excited that the next module we're going to dive into that data source, look at how we use CDS with our Power Apps, Canvas apps, and then we'll get into doing CDS with model-driven apps, which is a whole nother exciting topic. So hopefully you'll stick around and we'll have a little more fun coming up.